Today we're tying a Hackle stacker version of the classic Borcher string. Hey everyone, Matt here with the Northern Angler in Traverse City, Michigan. You can find all the materials for this fly and tons more at thenorthernangler.com. So if you haven't fished it, if you haven't even heard of it, the Borcher drake is a fly that we rely on every single year for darker colored mayflies. You can change sizes, you can tweak little things, and you can match a ton of different flies from mahoganies to ISOs and beyond. It's a fly that should be in your box if you don't have it already. This version employs the really emerging and quite popular Hackle stacker style, where we're gonna wrap a hackle up a post and then fold it over. This gives you a really great body profile on the water. It's gonna sit super low, but it's still visible thanks to that hackle. Think of a hackled comparadun, if you will. It's kind of a unique half hemisphere setup. It catches tons of fish, it looks great, and it's pretty darn easy to tie once you get the hang of a few ins and outs. So let's jump right in and get to the vise. Let's go ahead and start with the hook securely in the vise. This is the Ahrex FW570. This is a size 12. We're going to start our thread just behind the eye. Starting place is not crucial with this fly. About midway back, trim that excess off. And I'm going to work back to just about where my thread intersects the point of the hook here. And I'm going to grab some Zelon. Antron works just as well. Don't get stuck in having to have exact right materials. This is what one chunk looks like, and this is way too much. We want, maybe about, we want less. Less is better for this fly, and even this is maybe a little bit much. Okay, pull a few more strands out, great. And just leave this long, we're gonna trim it. Pinch wrap there, keep it on top of the shank. Today I'm using 50 denier GSP. Just makes for a super strong, super thin thread, easy to use. Could be a little slick, but I still like it. Okay, I'm wrapping this up the shank almost to the eye, and then I'm going to work back again. So let's trim this before we add our tail fibers. And the trick when you're cutting these, if you cut straight across, it just doesn't look super natural, and you can try this back and forth saw motion. What I've found is tensioning this material and then pulling back a little bit. The reposition, then pull back. So I'm moving left or right instead of moving perpendicular. Great, we got a little yarn stub there. I think that looks nice. We're going to grab some moose body for the tail fibers. And you do not need a whole lot here. Just a few fibers, really. Pull all that fluff out of there. You do not want that. And I'm going to stack this just to line things up. I'm going to open my stacker with the tips back. Makes it a lot easier. Grab those out of there. And I want to measure one shank length. One shank length. Transfer your measurement. And before we tie these in, I did forget to do this part. I want to create a little bit of a bump. And I'm going to do that just by wrapping back and forth in one spot. And that helps us splay these fibers out. Wrap back towards that bump. Almost use it as a wedge. And you can see those fan out. That's what we want. So we got a little bit of everything on this pattern. All right, cover those up, loose wraps moving up the shank here. And as long as you get up near the eye, that's good. You just don't want to bump material bump in the middle of your taper. So I'm going to come back about mid shank, and we're going to grab some ultra wire. This is extra fine copper, really thin stuff. It's nice. I mean, you're putting a rib on a dry fly, you don't want to weigh it down with thick wire. Plus this gives it a nice segmentation. Wrap that right on back to that tie-in point. Don't build up your thread too much. And for the body material, we're going to use some turkey tail. This is Ozark. It has this great brown and black barring kind of modeling. And we want to tie in by the tips, not right at the tips because the tips can be a little weak and sometimes this can break apart. Usually this material is long enough to accommodate these bigger flies, which is why we love it. Cover these up, trim any excess, and I want basically to wrap as far as I can forward with this. We're just going to wrap over it. You can create a bit of a taper here if you want. Usually I'm not too worried about this perfect taper. As long as you have a fairly smooth thread body, you'll be in good shape. So I'm going to use my rotary function. I'm going to grab my thread and do a quick half hitch, 2 of them, lock it off. Grab my bobbin cradle, keep that out of the way. And these fibers are so long, I don't really need a hackle plier here. Just make sure you start things as far back as possible. And you'll see these turkey fibers have great texture, really good. Move the cradle out of the way, capture your material. I do 3 on top, 3 in front, trim that off, and then you can do 2 or 3 wraps on top again. I'm going to come back with half hitches. Keep on running down the rotary world here, and then I'm going to go opposite direction with my ultra wire, lock this in, create some segmentation and a durable body. Same thing, put some wraps on top of this. And this is why you want, even though this is a fairly large dry fly, this is why you still want a light thread, is you're tying stuff in, tying stuff off. You don't want to build your thread up. It just doesn't play well. Okay. I'm going to cover this. I'm just working back with my thread to about the 1/3 mark. So if we split this shank into thirds, I want to be about 1/3 back. About there. If you're halfway, you're definitely too far back. All right, and I just did this with my thread really to clear a runway. I grab a little bit of tippet today. Doesn't really matter what tippet you're using, but I use a lot of SA products. And cut a sizable chunk. I'm only going to tie in one piece at a time, one end at a time, and you want to leave yourself a tag because this stuff is slippery. Work back to that finish point, and then what I want to create is just enough space where I can comfortably reach down. I can tension the loop with one finger. You can see here. And I can still reach down and contact the shank. You can see it started to slide there. I haven't really bound that in. You can add some loose wraps and then tension it if you want. You run the risk a little bit there. It's a little short. The more of these you do, the more you'll get used to them, of course. But now I'm adding some thread tension. I really want to lock this stuff in because we're going to be adding some tension to it. Make sure you get some wraps to the shank as well. Great, we got a nice loop. for our Hackle Stacker Grizzly Hackle. This is size 12 saddle from Whiting 100 pack. Makes things really, really easy. And they look good too. Okay, to prep this, you'll want to trim some of this hackle just to make it easy. Trim it there. And then we want to wrap it in so that that stem matches up right with the start of where that tippet is. You can use a bunch of things too. You can use rubber legs, you can use thread, you can use all sorts of stuff. Tippet's just been really friendly for me, so that's what I stick to. I'm gonna wet my thread here, and I'm gonna lay down a bit of a dubbing thorax. This is just brown superfine. It kind of matches the color scheme here. It definitely has some brown and black, and I want to leave space. Make sure you leave some space in front of your dubbing ball, right up near the eye. I'm gonna keep dubbing this a little bit at a time. And anytime you're worried about how far you're going back, just lift your tippet up. It'll tell you right where you need to be. A little bit at a time here. Anytime you add dubbing in large chunks, it doesn't go well. So less is more, always. Create a bit of a ball. I don't want this to just be flat. I kind of want a little bit of a ball to it. Okay. And then finish this up here. Should have just gone with more dubbing in my hand to start with, I think. Made this a little bit easier. There we go. Now we have some space in the front. We're going to add, probably my favorite part is the CDC feather. I am lucky enough to have some buddies and great customers who bring me really, really nice CDC feathers that just, they look great, they tie great, they're natural. Pick out a good one from the bag here, and we're gonna go with this one. It's nice and dense, easy. Actually, I'm gonna show you something. So we're not gonna use this simply because that stem is too thick. And that sounds crazy, but if you're wrapping your stem around this thin hook, it's gonna want to snap. So we're gonna go with, so look at this stem here compared to this one here. I know it's a little tough to see, but too thick of a stem is not gonna wrap very well. It's gonna snap. So we're gonna tie in by the tip. Make sure you're wrapping the stem, not just fibers down. Come in, trim this off. And you can skip this step if you want. I like it. It makes it a little bit buggier. And I'm going to use my hackle pliers with this because CDC is pretty short feather. And I wet my fingers and I preen these fibers back as I rotate. You could use the rotary, but we've kind of got a lot going on. And I'm just going to wedge this up against the dubbing and work forward slowly. I'm just looking for 2, maybe 3 wraps tops. I'm just going to tie it off here. That's plenty. It looks super buggy, but these feathers get dense at the base, and you'll see this isn't as wild and crazy as it looks. Bring this back, get a few wraps in front. Trim that. Great. So see, it's not so wild and crazy. Bring these back, and I want to wrap over top of those stem wraps. Again, all the more reason to use a nice thin thread. All right, for this part, I usually try and bring the CDC up forward so it doesn't get caught quite as much. You're gonna tension this loop with your middle finger and wrap with your index and thumb. And we're just working up the tippet, trying not to trap too many CDC fibers or anything else. And these long saddles make this so easy. I would not want to do this with a piece of neck, no way. And when you think you're getting close, just wrap forward, bring this forward. Yep, definitely, we're close. I could probably go one less. And then I'm gonna start working back down the tippet. This gives you some density. Get all the way down, jam one at the back. This is really durable at this point. You can pull this back. Jam one last wrap there. And I'm ready to fold this over. Okay. Keep it on top of the shank. And I've pinched it here. I've really tried to come in and preen and preen and preen. And I'm gonna come in with a loose wrap and then bring tension to it. I got 3 wraps. Now I'm gonna pull on this tippet, make sure I'm locked in tight. Get some more wraps on it. Lift it up. Get some wraps in front, right up against the eye, wedge it in there. You wanna make sure this thing is secure. It's durable once it's done, but it's easy to underdo it. Trim your tippet, I know, bold move. Grab your whip finish tool, and we're almost there. Bring everything back. Great, I do 2 whip finishes on this fly. I want it to be nice and durable. And again, look, we have minimal thread buildup because we've gone to a really thin, really strong thread, worth doing. Trim that out. Then start combing everything forward so you can expose the back end of this hackle. Take your time here. There we go. Trim that out. The CDC is a little bit long. I'll just, instead of cutting it, I'll just rip it. That happens, that's okay, that's part of the deal. Rotate. Rotate and rip. Right, let her rip. All right, great. And feel free, please leave some of these fibers long. Comb out this hackle a little bit. Trim any stragglers out of the way. And that is your fly. So that's my hackle stacker version of a Borcher's drake, and I'd encourage you to tie some up and try them out this trout season. Let us know what you thought. If you have any questions, leave us a comment down below. We always love hearing from you. And if you get a chance, hit that thumbs up button before you leave. It's a huge help for us. Thanks for watching, everyone. We'll see you soon in the shop or out on the water.